10:05. All right, great. Yes. Hello, everybody. My name is Danny. I'm an alcoholic, and it's good to be here. And it was great to meet Randy and Kevin in New York. And it's one thing special, no matter where you meet people from, and you just sense somebody that has had that spiritual experience. You just connect. It's like you know each other, and we knew right away. Uh, that we were like friends, like as if we knew each other forever. And it was great. So, and I love what you guys are doing with that Big Book podcast is amazing. So, and it's there where you could go and look at the past chapters and everything too, which is great. So when I speak, I try to bring a message of hope to people because I know what it's like to feel hopeless. And in the beginning of the book, it actually tells you we were 100 men and women who have recovered from a seemingly hopeless state of mind. And just so you know about me, thanks to the recovery I found in the steps and the fellowship, I haven't had to have a drink since November 27, 1987. So I have 38 years, and uh, and I'm still a very active member in AA. I love AA. I love my home group, High Noon. Um, we love to help newcomers and so forth, and it helps me because one of the blessings of AA is the more you help other people, the more you help yourself. So, and just so you know, the reason I say I bring a message of hope, 38 years ago, or 38 and a half years ago, I wound up in a homeless shelter as a result of whatever it was. I was 35 years old, 20 something years of drinking and drugging. So I always like to say too, and I know my buddies will know this. I say there's a meter that runs along. In the beginning, it's 95% fun, 95% control, and 5% trouble maybe, and no control. So my father was a lunatic. He terrorized us, but I was a very good athlete, and I got a lot of my self worth from sports. I just love sports, and I love hanging out. Uh, I had my first drink pretty early on, and truthfully, I love to get high. I really did, and all through my teenage years, I'm not going to give a long drunkalogue, but all through my teenage years, it was just partying, sex, drugs, and rock and roll. And if there was no consequences, I'd probably still be doing it. But Bill talks about both in the Big Book where he talks about I forged an alliance with alcohol that would turn around like a boomerang and slice him to death, and then in the 12 and 12 he puts the name on it, the rapacious creditor, which I had no idea what that was. So, uh, but it basically what it's doing, it's loaning us that good time. And eventually, if you're an alcoholic, some people, you might not be. So, usually when you come in here, you probably are. So, but it's going to take it back 100 times over. And it did that to me. So I played ball and again, I wasn't drinking all the time. I wasn't getting drunk all the time. It's just, but like weekends, we're talking about the late 60s and the early 70s. It was all about, going to concerts and Grand Funk Railroad 10 years after everything, partying, and I loved it. I really did. We looked forward to getting high. Um, but I graduated high school, didn't move on. And like I said, I'm going to breeze through maybe 5 to 6 minutes of this. So wound up down in Wall Street. In the first week, my boss took me to the bar, and I was like, "This is fantastic." So, and I spent quite a few years in Wall Street, and I was a hard worker. You know, they used to say down in Wall Street, if you're going to hoot with the owls at night, you better be able to fly with the eagles in the morning. And now I will admit that other things came as I went along, other drugs and stuff I started using. I became like a chemist where I would be doing, because I was back. This is when mergers were going on, so you had to work from like 8 in the morning to 10 at night. So I would be keeping myself awake, and then I'd be putting myself to sleep. I knew nothing about alcoholism. I knew none of that. Um, the meat is moving along a little bit now, though, because there is some trouble going on. You're finding yourself, I'm talking about years in Wall Street now. As I'm moving up the ladder, I became an assistant supervisor, then a supervisor. I'm finding myself, I got married. I'm finding myself winding up in Times Square, going to places I shouldn't be going, seeing people I shouldn't be meeting, and doing things I shouldn't be doing. And so the meat is moving along now. There's trouble coming in. Uh, but I still think I can control it. So, and we learned that in the big book, which I'll get to. But so this just moved along for years. And I'm talking, I love when Dr. Bob in his story, he tells you how bad it was. And then he comes out and he says, and it went on for 18 more years. And I'm like, I can identify that. It just goes on and on and on. And you think you have control, because I was getting promoted. And again, I'm not drunk all the time, but every time I drank, it could be trouble. I'd wind up in Brooklyn in somebody's house. I wound up becoming a manager, and I was in control of cab vouchers. So I could be hammered down in Wall Street in some bar and call for a cab and get home. I wouldn't remember how I got home, but I'd get home. But I'd get up and go to work, you know. And there was trouble. My wife didn't like the fact that I wasn't coming home. She thought that was a problem. And so, uh, and so trouble became because of that. So again, I'm moving through because I don't want to get stuck in a drunken log. You get stuck in there. So me and my wife started having some problems. I had 3 kids by now, and it just got bad. So we wound up separating. And I'm getting my drinking is picking up different proportions now. Now I'm drinking scotch, blacking out and this and that. But I'm still promoting and work. I remember I wound up getting my own apartment. We eventually got divorced, but things started getting so bad for me that I used to do my laundry, and I had my own washer dryer. I used to just iron the front of my shirt. I couldn't even iron the rest of my shirt. And I'm losing weight. I'm doing drugs now too. And people are saying to me, Dan, what's wrong with you? You're losing weight. And I'm like, I'm working out. I'm working out. So this is what's going on. But trouble's starting to come out. People are starting to say to me, Dan, do you know what you did last night? And I'd be like, no. Was it good? And they'd be like, no, it wasn't good. You cursed somebody out. You took a swing at somebody. So it started getting bad. And, but as bad as it was getting, it was going to get a lot worse. So what happened was I got divorced, and I'm speeding through this. So I want to get to some good stuff. So, and I wound up becoming a bartender on Saturday. And I met this girl who was a drug dealer. She introduced me to freebase cocaine and crack cocaine. And it was going to be a nightmare now. So I'm going 2 or 3 days with no sleep and still going to work. I'm going into the office and I'm smoking crack in my office. I'm a manager now. I got supervisors working for me. I got to do reports, and I'm starting to get. I didn't even know what alcoholism is, but I knew I needed a drink in the morning because I was getting shaky. So it's just getting worse and worse and worse. So it's a million crazy stories. I'm not boring you with them. So what happens is with this girl, and I'm now a weekend dad too. I got to take care of my kids. So I was supposed to take her daughter and my 3 kids away on a vacation. And I go to pick her up. The police are outside the door. I don't know what happened. No, actually, I got to the door. She didn't answer the door. I left. I came back. The police were there. I thought they arrested her because she was a dealer. It turns out her roommate's ex-husband came in and murdered her and killed the girl and then killed himself. And I was at that door. Uh, but as sick as I was, this is what went through my mind. I had just paid her rent check, and I was like, well, there's no need for that guy to get the rent check. And I put a stop on the check. That's how sick I was. So, and now I started destructive drinking and drugging, and it went on and on and on. So eventually I went to my EAP counselor and told him I had a problem with drugs. He said, no, you're an alcoholic. And they sent me to a rehab, Brunswick House. And I was there full pay, 30 days. I heard about the big book. I heard don't pick up a drink. Uh, don't pick up the first drink. I got it. Just like Bill Wilson said, self-knowledge. I will not pick up a drink because I can't. I'm not buying the book. I don't need the tapes. I don't want it. I'm not going to drink. We know what happened. So 3 or 4 weeks outside of that rehab, I had gotten a new girl, and she took me to the South Sea Seaport and had a glass of wine. And I don't even like wine. Next thing you know, I'm down on the corner with Flacco doing the same crap again. And now it went on for a year and a half, and it was million crazy stories. It was January of 1987. It was so bad. The pressure I was feeling trying to, I've got to do manager's reports. I couldn't be a drug addict, an alcoholic, and a manager. Something had to go. I decided the job's got to go. And I got a bonus check and walked out of my job. I started bouncing checks, and I wound up in the street. And that's where I pretty much lived for about 7 or 8 months in 1987. My friend had a van, uh, and we were doing some moving jobs, and we got some air mattresses, and they let me have the air mattresses. So now I was sleeping in his van, getting a shower every 3 days, and stopped seeing my children, uh, and was running in and out of restaurants to feed myself. But here I am saying, you know what? I got air mattresses. This is not that bad. I could take a shower every couple of days. My mind is deteriorating now. I'm losing it. Uh, and as we start sinking and sinking, I'm trying to, I'll get myself out of this, blah, blah, blah. So it went on and on and on. It was horrible. I robbed my mother. I'm now robbing people and this and that. I remember being in the back of a car. My kids were walking down. I seen my kids. I ducked down. I was in tears. I couldn't even see my children. So it was November of 1987. I asked my mother if she would let me back in. It was getting cold, and she said only if you get help. So I went to a hospital, and I stayed there for 5 days. And I was going to go up to Graymore, and I missed the bus. And the lunatic I was, I went back to the neighborhood for one more night, and it was just another night of insanity. And so luckily, the next day I got to the bus, and I went up to Graymore. It's a homeless shelter in New York. I don't know if you know what it is, but it's not a rehab. I had to walk up the hill to get there. They make you strip down and they delouse you with powder. And here I am saying, what happened to me? We talked about hopeless. I'm feeling hopeless now. What happened to me? I used to be a manager. I was a tremendous ball player. I had children. I was able to handle everything. And here I was just destroyed, beaten, broken. So I went into an AA meeting and I heard a guy say, I bet you feel like a loser. And I did. And he said, you're not a loser. You're just losing today. If you get on the AA team and do what needs to be done, you can change your life. And that kind of resonated with me. I went into the chapel and I heard the gospel. It's Matthew of Zacchaeus. He's in the tree. Jesus is walking in the town and he looks up and says, Zacchaeus, come down from that tree. I want to enter into your home. And I felt a wind go through me. I thought it might be an acid kickback the way it felt, but uh, I was startled. And I haven't had a drink or drug since that moment. And it was sort of similar to like Bill's white light uh, experience. But it's not good enough because that's just like in a weight you get smacked that you got to stop. And and I just said at that moment, I will do whatever it takes to save my life. So they let me stay up there for 7 weeks. You're only supposed to stay for 3 weeks. They let me stay. I got into a rehab. And I started reading everything, Bible, big book, this, that. People were like looking at me, get away from me. Okay. I'm like saying, see what this says? See what this says? So they're like, go away. Because most people in these places, they're not really trying to get help. I spent 6 weeks in uh, uh, a rehab. And when I could have got out, I went to a halfway house and spent 7 months in a halfway house. I had to take antabuse. I was going to do whatever it takes. But you were able to go out and go to meetings. I went to a meeting. I got a sponsor. I got a sponsor. I started making coffee in groups. I started reading that book. And everything I was reading just resonated with me. They would say, William James, Writers, Religious Spirits. I'd go out and get the book. I'm reading that. I'm reading the big book. And so what I really wanted to talk about was what happens then, because it tells us that, the purpose of this book is to show you precisely how we've recovered. And I just became obsessed. I didn't have anything else to do, truthfully, because I was getting a job now, but I wasn't really, that was it. I was going to AA meetings and reading AA meetings, sharing, talking to my sponsor. And I started becoming on fire for the program. And like, so the beginning of the book, the first couple of chapters, after Bill's story and so forth, there is a solution and so forth, started resonate with me where they were saying, you need to find a spiritual experience. You need to find that, and they give you examples of people that thought they had it, self-knowledge, and eventually they would pick up, a Roland Hazard with Carl Jung, and they even told him, I don't know if it was in their solution, it might be in their solution. Uh, you're doomed. We don't really have no hope for you, except There are some exceptions of people who have a vital spiritual experience or a spiritual awakening. So it kept saying that over the first couple of chapters. Then we agnostics turned my life around. When I read that chapter, now I'm going to tell you the truth is when you first read these things, they don't make as much sense. But after you've had a little bit of the experience and you go back and read them again, it's like magic. It's like, wow, okay. And so, because I kept reading them, and I did what they said, do the steps quickly. I know, I was Dr. Bob in a good old time, as A comes of A. They were getting people down on their knees quickly. So I went in through the steps very quickly. Uh, and I believe that saved my life. So all of that, but in We Agnostics, it says in page 53, I know Kevin could know all of these pages because I listened to him. It's incredible. Uh, God either is or he isn't. Okay. And then my famous one is page 55, where they say, in the final analysis, the only place you'll find God is deep within you. Now, I was reading scriptures too, and Jesus told us the kingdom of God is within you. So I'm like, this makes sense. The only place I'm finding is with me. Jesus said the kingdom of God is within me. He also said, no, seek ye first the kingdom of God and all things will be added up to you. So the second step tells us we need to find a power greater than ourselves. Okay. And then it tells us, unless a man is born again, he can't enter the kingdom. Oh, I can't get into that kingdom. Born again doesn't mean a physical birth, it means a spiritual birth. So the question was, why wasn't I awakening? What could I do? Now, anybody who knows me, I've coined a phrase that I call spiritual cholesterol. Okay. I wrote a book about it. So, and what that is exactly what we find, because the third step, the first two steps are just thinking about it. Am I powerless over alcohol? Is my life unmanageable? Well, Dan, you wound up in a homeless shelter. Check that one off. Okay. Your self-knowledge got you nowhere. Okay. I'm open-minded to find a solution. And the third step for me means I'm going to tell somebody else, I'm going to read a prayer of your own choice, whatever you want to do. I'm going to do whatever it takes to find that power. Now it tells you in how it works. Uh, Saying that prayer and doing that will have no avail unless immediately followed by a strenuous thing. So anybody who says 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, to me it was 1, 2, 3, do 4, get into it. So, and I remember saying how it works is probably the most visible thing that's read in AA everywhere you go. People love to read how it works, and I always like to say, I always get a kick out of it when it comes to the back. They say there was 3 pertinent ideas. Now, only an alcoholic would go, there's 3 pertinent ideas, and then go A, B, and C. Not 1, 2, 3, A, B, and C. So I get a kick out of that. Now, I use the first A or 1, okay, uh, that your life is a disaster, is honesty. That is, I had to get honest about myself. And God could restore me to sanity, is open mindedness. So that's the how. And then if he sought, I need to be willing to do the work. I need to do the steps from here on in, 4 through 9. And then, only then does the awakening really occur, the full awakening. So I always like to say how it works. Well, what is it? Because people don't stop to think about it. It is what it just told us in the prior chapters, that self knowledge will avail us nothing. And we need to have a psychic change or a spiritual awakening. And we're going to give you the instructions right now for that to occur. And I've bought into that. So I poured my heart out. I did what I had to do. Uh, I've done my 5th step. Then at the 6th and 7th, very quickly in a big book, you just go home after the 5th step, and it's like right away, you know. Bill changes the words. They're all the same: shortcomings, character defects, it's the same thing. So I don't want to be that person anymore. I don't want to be. Now, I will tell you this: when you first do your 4th step, the truth will set you free. First, it'll piss you off because it's scary knowing what I did to my children and my family and people I've did. How would I ever recover? But I'm here to tell you I have recovered and I've made amends, and all of that life is wonderful. So I needed to do that. I don't want to be that person anymore. I made the amends. where possible. You need to have a sponsor to do this. And that's when the promises come into a case. I will know a new freedom. I don't get an old freedom back. It's a new freedom where I can look people in the eye and live a great life. And then I live in 10, 11, and 12. As my wife knows, I always say this, and she's sitting over here listening to me. So, uh, when wrong, promptly admit it. She says I don't promptly admit it enough, so or quickly enough. So, and she knows I say that all the time. But some days I'll justify something for a day or two, but eventually, until I get rid of it, I'm not free. And the 11th step, I need to pray for God's guidance. And then the answer to everything in this program is, having had a spiritual awakening, I tried to carry this message to other people. That's why I'm here today, is carrying that message and bringing a message of hope. And I need to help other people. That's why I go. People say, "Why? How many meetings you need a week?" One. Why do you go to 6 or 7? I don't know which one it is. Okay, so, but I go because that's where the people are that are coming in. We had our meeting today. I mean, we have like sometimes 10, 12 people, like counting days. So that's where we help people. And by me helping them, I'm helping myself. So I'm glad Kevin and Randy asked me to come here, uh, uh, out to California. And I just love A. Thanks a lot.